Once upon a time, in the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, nestled around the mighty Zagros Mountains, there lived a mysterious people known as the Gutians. They didn't have a written language, and what we know about them mostly comes from the accounts of their enemies like the Akkadians, Sumerians, and Assyrians. These accounts blame the Gutians for causing chaos and destruction in the land. Historical texts accuse the Gutians of contributing to the downfall of the Akkadian Empire and the devastation of Sumer. They first appear in Akkadian records during the reign of Shar-Kali-Sheri, one of the final kings of the Akkadian Empire. The Gutians are also mentioned during the rule of Naram-Sin and in later Mesopotamian literature. After the fall of the Akkadian Empire, the Gutians seized power in Sumer, although the extent of their rule is debated. Their reign ended when the king of Uruk, Utu-Hegel, led a rebellion against them. Subsequent rulers like Yor-Namu and Shulgi of Yor continued the fight until the Gutians were finally driven out of the land. Assyrian texts later referred to the Medes as Gutians, using the term to describe any group seen as uncivilized or barbaric. The exact origins of the Gutians remain unclear, with ancient sources only mentioning that they came from the Zagros Mountains, north of Elam, modern-day Iran. However, there's uncertainty whether these accounts refer to the same group of people. The Gutians were initially described as nomadic raiders who targeted cities under Akkadian control. They established themselves in Sumer around 2218 BCE, leading to a period known as the Gutian period, before they were eventually challenged and ousted by Utu-Hegel. And the Gutians' conquest of Sumer remains shrouded in mystery, much like other aspects of their history. Scribes from ancient times blamed them for widespread destruction and death in the region. Modern archaeological digs in Mesopotamia between the fall of Akkad and the rise of Sumer under Yor-Namu reveal no signs of human habitation. The Gutians were held accountable for this desolation by Sumerian scribes. According to historical accounts, the Gutians descended from the upper Diyala Valley, leaving a trail of devastation behind them. They were depicted as a savage and uncontrolled people, described as having human intelligence but behaving like dogs and looking like monkeys. The catastrophe they brought upon Akkad was described as merciless, with chaos reigning supreme. Trade routes were abandoned, cities were in disarray, and foreign lands lamented from their walls. While early historians accepted these accounts as factual, modern scholars like Paul Kriwacek suggest alternative explanations. They propose that climate change, leading to drought and famine, might have been the primary cause of Akkad's downfall. The Gutians, in this view, merely took advantage of the weakened state of the empire. Social upheaval and economic collapse could have also contributed to the chaos described in ancient texts. Although archaeological evidence indicates climate change during this period, it's unclear if it directly resulted in famine or social unrest. The later Akkadian kings, notably Shar-Kali-Sheri, faced continuous wars against various enemies, including the Gutians. With Akkad weakened and its rulers unable to maintain control over their territories, the Gutians may have found it easier to conquer the region, even without external factors like climate change. And the Gutian kings who ruled over Sumer are shrouded in uncertainty, with little known about their origins or the extent of their influence. Imta, possibly also known as Nibia, is mentioned as one of the earliest Gutian rulers in Sumer during the late 3rd millennium BCE. He was followed by Enkeshush, the first Gutian king to appear on the Sumerian king list. Despite ruling for 6 years, the reach of his authority remains unclear. Sarlagab succeeded him, possibly the same king captured by Shar-Kali-Sheri, although this is uncertain. Subsequently, 16 other Gutian kings are listed, each with brief reigns ranging from 1 to 7 years, until Tiragan took the throne. However, Tiragan's reign lasted only 40 days before he was ousted by Utu-Hegel around 2050 BCE. According to the Victory Stele of Utu-Hegel, the Sumerian king refused to negotiate with Tiragan and imprisoned his envoys. Upon realizing Utu-Hegel's superiority, Tiragan attempted to flee with his family but was captured and likely executed. Utu-Hegel then restored Sumerian kingship and subdued the Gutians, earning the epithet of defanging the serpent Gutians of the mountains. However, Utu-Hegel's reign was short-lived due to a reported transgression against Marduk, the patron deity of Babylon, which led to his drowning. The kingship then passed to Yor-Namu of Yor. Under Yor-Namu's rule, known as the Sumerian Renaissance of the Yor III period, 2047 to 1750 BCE, Sumer experienced a revival. Namu initiated various construction projects, revitalized the economy, and implemented the Code of Namu, the oldest known law code. Despite his accomplishments, Namu perished in battle against the Gutians. His son, Shulgi of Yor, continued the conflict and eventually succeeded in driving the Gutians out of Sumer early in his reign. Despite their defeat in Sumer, the Gutians didn't vanish entirely but retreated to their homeland near the Zagros Mountains. They persisted in Mesopotamian Naru literature, where historical figures, usually kings, starred in fictional dramas imparting moral lessons. One such tale, the Legend of Cutha, features Naram Sin confronting monstrous invaders associated with the Gutians, reflecting their barbaric reputation. In the story, Naram Sin's kingdom is besieged by these formidable entities, wreaking havoc on villages and towns. Although not explicitly named as Gutians, their actions echo the brutality attributed to them by Sumerian scribes. Seeking guidance from the gods, Naram Sin learns to defer to divine will rather than act on his own understanding. Despite initial military failures, he eventually captures enemy soldiers but refrains from harm, trusting in the gods' plan. The legend of Cutha likely resonated with audiences long after the fall of Akkad, with Naram Sin and other Akkadian kings revered as folk heroes. The portrayal of the Gutians as inhuman adversaries underscores their role as agents of divine justice. As Sumer succumbed to external forces like the Elamites and Amorites, the Gutians embodied the feared other, responsible for unwelcome change and cultural decline. Van de Meerop reflects on the negative portrayal of the Gutians in Mesopotamian literature, emphasizing their perceived barbarity and foreign domination. However, he acknowledges the ambiguity surrounding their depiction, questioning whether it reflects reality or merely scribes biases against unfamiliar customs. Unfortunately, the truth remains elusive. After their expulsion by Shulgi of Yor, the Gutians continued to influence Mesopotamian history, albeit indirectly. The Assyrians, for instance, identified the Medes as Gutians, indicating that the term Gutian had evolved to denote any foreign entity perceived as menacing. Assyrian records attribute rebellions in Babylon and the destruction of temples to the Gutians, reinforcing their reputation as disruptive forces. When Cyrus II of the Achaemenid Empire conquered Babylon in 539 BCE, he reportedly employed Gutian mercenaries, suggesting that the Gutian name persisted as a symbol of military prowess. However, after the Achaemenids established control over Mesopotamia, the Gutians fade from historical records. While later references to barbarians might evoke the Gutians, they likely refer to different groups rather than the original conquerors of Akkad and Sumer. Van de Meerop aptly notes that despite numerous references to Gutians and Gutium, they provide insufficient material to reconstruct the history of this enigmatic people. Attempts to connect them with modern ethnic groups like the Kurds remain speculative due to the lack of definitive evidence about the Gutians' identity. Until further discoveries shed light on their origins and legacy, the mystery surrounding the Gutians will persist unchanged.